like this little dirty little bass line.
I don't fucking care. Can we move on to a new segment, please?
Welcome to Just Two Fans, a sports show about sports,
Obviously.
about life,
Because sports are life.
and about just whatever the hell we feel like talking about. So, let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jay Freelander. Joining me this week, because Eli's out of town, is the one and only Chris Burkhardt.
I made it. I'm back. This is what
You're
it feels
back.
like. Feels good.
How you doing?
Good. Took me a minute. I had a fun day hosting radio today, which is pretty sweet. And now I'm here. You texted me the other day, and you're like, "Hey, when you going to be ready to join us again?" I'm like, "Oh, I can still come on." I thought I was kicked off. I thought Just Two Fans went back to two fans and said, "Screw that professional
Zero
guy."
professionals.
Yeah, but I'm back. So here we go.
You're back. And you're back just in time for maybe one of the best weeks in college football that we've had in a long time coming up this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. Before we get to that, we have some other stuff to talk about. Cameron, sounds like we've got some echo issues.
Probably. You know, you figure out what works, and then all of a sudden we change it.
Yep.
So I don't know where the echo would be coming from, so we'll just wait. Give me 1 second.
You
Can you-
son of a buck.
Can you hear it?
No,
Or is it just on the
it's
stream?
probably just on the stream. Cam sounds
awesome.
amazing.
That's
I
awesome.
always sound amazing.
That's because Cam is running our stream this week because Eli's gone and I don't have all of the stuff that they have to run this show.
All right, just start turning stuff off until it figures itself out. I'll listen to it. Give me a second.
Good job, Cam. This is awesome. We're off to another just rip roaring start here on this show. We need to. Here's what we need to do. We need to put the professional in charge of all of this stuff because he won't screw it up. Right, Chris?
I hope you're not talking about me. I would screw it up. I screw everything up. I think my presence is what's screwing this up.
No,
There's definitely an echo.
You
as I
must
hear
not
that.
have been tuning in the last like 5 episodes because this happens pretty much every time since we started the stream.
Yeah, put me in charge.
Is it fixed? Anybody out there? Before I start rambling on about sports, when you can't hear me. Love it. Love this.
Stream can't hear me, but I found it.
Nice.
There's like 18 different sources, and it was one at the very bottom that somehow got turned on because
Awesome.
I forgot that Eli has to like take every single audio source individually, and I can run them as one single one to my computer. So I just had to dig. I just started deleting shit. And,
They can't hear you now, or they can hear you?
they should be able to hear me now.
Oh, good.
I'm still on there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's start talking about sports because it's time. One of these days, we are going to have a flawless start, and I'm not going to know what to do with myself because
It'll throw you off for sure.
it's going to throw me off.
Hey, let's think about it this way though. That fix took 3.5 minutes, and no one had to turn off and turn on their computer again.
Yeah, we have had to do that a few times.
I had to do it before we went live. So
That's true. You did have to do that. Technology's great, guys. It's just
Not
the
your
best.
forte.
All right.
not your
All right.
favorite day.
Sports and things. Before we get to college football, we're going to start, thank you, Chris, for the sound effects, with some Formula One. Did you watch the Singapore Grand Prix this last weekend?
Me?
Yes.
Oh,
you.
of course. Why do you think I sent you the race car emoji?
You did. You sent me the red race car emoji.
That was my that was my tease. I was like, I'm going to send him the race car emoji. If he doesn't react, I'm not going to say anything just in case he hasn't watched the race. You guys didn't say anything, so I didn't engage.
I half watched the race because Kate woke up sick on Sunday, so I was trying to wrangle all 3 children all day. So I had it on, but I had to watch it at night after the fact. Really good race. It's finally nice to see a team other than Red Bull on top.
Best race of the season,
yes.
hands down.
Oh, by far. Not even close.
One other thing, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I plugged myself into the stream because I'm wearing my McLaren hat because the entire podium was current or former McLaren drivers.
Pretty impressive.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
I did. All right, I'll go back to my cave.
Sorry, not
I do gotta
listening.
say,
Too
though,
distracted by the new sexy on the screen.
Oh my
Thank you.
goodness.
I needed that. That helped me today.
That's pretty good.
I like that.
What, Chris?
Now I gotta say that I love technology, Jamie, because I watched that race as the boat I was on to go deep sea fishing was trekking out to our fishing location.
That's pretty awesome.
It was a good test because I'd never been deep sea fishing. Like, are you gonna get seasick? I'm like, we'll find out. So no better way to test that than sitting on a rocky boat trying to watch your phone to make sure the race goes down. I'm like, if we get out of cell phones range right as this race ends, but no, great race. And it's always fun not only to watch someone else win, but to watch both Red Bulls struggle. Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, watch Max actually have a bad weekend. When's the last time we saw him have a bad weekend? Not win, but have a weekend where he wasn't even in contention at any point. It's been a very long time. So I don't know if that's a sign of things to come. I don't know if the rest of the season's going to be Red Bull struggling, but it certainly creates a lot of intrigue for me because I was certainly getting sick of them winning everything every week. There's always I've talked to Cameron about this, and Cameron, feel free to chime in, obviously, whenever. American sports fans aren't really built for F1 because a lot of the intrigue in F1 is in the middle of the field and the battles for championship points or constructors championship points for the 3rd, 4th, 5th teams, that tier. That creates a lot of intrigue for a lot of people. Americans aren't really built like that. It's if you ain't first, you're last, right? That's right. That's the whole thing.
Ricky Bobby said.
And so I'm kind of evolving into that in my F1 fandom. I'm starting to get there, but watching Max win every week, I'm just like, man, can somebody else pull this off? And it wasn't looking like it. I mean, they were looking unbeatable.
Yeah, this week was the great equalizer. That circuit is hard. It's narrow. It's always wet. And I mean, going through FP1 when they were at 7 and 8 in fastest times, that's when I knew. I was like, all right, they're not going to be up there, top 5 possibly. I don't, just because Max is such one of those drivers that if he's not in the top 5, top 3 out of FP1, that's probably, he's not going to get up there, unless there's something wrong with the car, and there wasn't. So it was a good weekend for racing, and we've got Japan this weekend.
So let me ask you, Cameron, since you're our local Formula One expert, was this a function of the circuit or a function of the field has caught up to Red Bull, or a combo of the two?
I think it was a combo of the two. I don't know what kind of leaps and bounds the rest of the field could have done in the past 2 weeks to catch up. And, most teams aren't looking at any late season improvements this week. They'll start looking towards Suzuka when we get towards that back tail end. Austin's a great one for some upgrades or just some more testing. I mean, McLaren's got Pato Award, who's going to come do free practice 1 for them. So you start seeing more of that later in the season. But it could just be it's just not a great circuit for him. He's tired. constantly
he has always
leading.
Struggled there.
Like when he leads, he's never won a race at Singapore. So he might not like it. What's a little surprising is how Checo wasn't there picking up the slack, right? You know, the Mexican Minister of Defense, the street circuit god, just wasn't there. So maybe it could have been something a little bit more with the car.
Season, though.
Yeah, but I mean, the 2 wins he has were both street circuits. Consistent top 5s up until the past couple of weeks. So I don't know what's going on with him, but he didn't take that opportunity to get in front of Max. Question for you guys, since you did watch it, how did you think the last 3 laps went for the top 4?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was epic racing.
It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say other than it was really exciting at the end of that race. I mean, it was looking for a while like George was going to win. If he could have got past Lando, it looked like he was going to win the whole thing.
If George was a better racer, he would have. If it was Carlos, Lando, Lewis, and then George, Lewis would have gotten to first, and George would have been able to follow him because he would have seen where they were failing over the last 3-4 laps. And I mean, I saw some people saying, you know, Lewis put pressure on him. That's why he crashed. I was like, no, he crashed because he got a little wily and hit the side of a wall.
Lewis didn't do shit to make that crash happen.
He said several times over the radio that George needs to speed up.
I was just gonna say, like, and you guys, I've become a Lewis fan watching all this. I'm just rooting for the guy to get back on track.
You can't not be a Lewis fan.
Yeah. But no, same thing. I thought he got aggressive, but not to like the screw Russ over. But I mean, if there was a chance for him to take the pass, he was going to do it. It wasn't going to let my guy go third, so I get fourth. But as I was going to say, and you said it there, Cameron, it was a good 10 laps before that where he's like, guys, tell George to pick it up. Tell George to pick it up. Like he was actively hurting both of them by not being more aggressive until late in the race.
Yeah, they came out on those fresh tires when they double stacked. They had an 8-second gap between the two because Mercedes was on it with their pit stops. And that was gone before the end of that lap. And then it was like, all right, we got to race. We got to catch because they were 20 seconds behind the leaders. And honestly, if they would have gone, all right, team orders, we're switching right here. And Lewis is going to lead you both all the way to the front. We're going to do it. I think the biggest issue, especially this late in the game, is that Mercedes doesn't have a clear number 1 anymore. Like, we may say it's Lewis because he gets paid more, but, I mean, you don't show up for him when he's on the podium to celebrate with him. He's obviously not your number 1.
I mean, he's 70 points ahead in the driver's standings. Like,
but he's not the future. So
no, he's definitely not the future.
So
they don't want to piss off George.
Yeah, they don't want to piss off George, but George doesn't really have any other options. I want Lewis to Audi in 2026 for a 2-year contract to take them a constructor's title in their first year.
That'd be nice.
It would be nice. All right. Let's see what's next. Japan.
Yep, Suzuka. It is a Saturday night race.
Win? Yeah, Saturday night, like 11 p.m. Who you guys taking this weekend? Is Max going to come back, or we looking at mixing up the field for the rest of the year?
I got Lewis.
Cameron, I'll start with you.
I got Lewis.
Lewis.
Yeah.
I like that. I want Lewis to win so bad.
I think that the Mercedes has gotten faster. It'll be a good high for the whole team. So we'll see. But I'd like to see Lewis win.
That's what I want, but I think Verstappen gets back on it. I can't see him being that bad 2 races in a row.
I don't think he's going to be that bad. I think Lewis is going to be that good.
Oh, I like it. I want to see him win so bad.
Dude.
Max won in Japan last year. Lewis came in 5th. But Cameron, I think you're right. I think that Mercedes car is coming back with a vengeance to end the season. My brain says Max. My heart says Lewis. So I'll pick Max because I think that's what it's going to be, unfortunately, but I hope it's Lewis. That's where I'm at.
With you.
That's
Definitely
where I'm
with
at. All right. NFL storylines.
There are plenty.
There are plenty. We're not going to go through all of them because this is a college football show, but we do touch on the other sports. While we were recording last week, the Monday night football game between the Jets and I don't even remember who they were playing because it doesn't really matter at this point. Bills. It was the Jets and the Bills. And Aaron Rodgers played all of 4 snaps with his new team before he tore his Achilles. We did not know that at the time of recording, so we're going to talk about it now. Is this it for Aaron Rodgers? Have we seen the end of Aaron Rodgers' career? Is he going to try to come back? Is he going to be successful at all if he does? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it sounds like he is. He sounds like he wants to come back. Robert Saleh already came out and said he couldn't envision it ending this way. There's plenty working against him, though. I mean, being on the almost 40, was he 38? So, dude, that's a terrible time to get an Achilles injury. The only positive in it is the fact that position, it's not incredibly Achilles intensive. Like if it were a running back, I'd be obviously a little more concerned just because the amount of cutting and quick explosion that has to happen on the field. If it were a basketball player in his late 30s, I'd be like, yeah, dunzo, like have fun with that. But for that particular position and a guy who's never really built his game on running and scrambling anyway, I don't think it's done, and I don't think he wants to go out that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's going to at least try. We'll see how successful it is, right? It's really unfortunate. I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks at all, but that Jets team looked like it was going to be a lot of fun. I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan, but they certainly looked like they were poised to do some dangerous stuff. Now, Hard Knocks has a way of making everybody look like that, so
right?
I take it a little bit with a grain of salt, but it is unfortunate. I mean, it's always fun to see the best play and to watch him go out like that. And if that does virtually end his career, that's really unfortunate to see him
I would agree.
That way.
You don't want to see that.
Let's talk about my Broncos here for a second because they still suck.
Oh, they bad.
Unfortunately, this year, it's the defense that sucks, which I did not see coming at all. That defense has been great. The offense struggled. Now the offense, I believe, is leading the league in points per possession, and the defense can't do anything. And their kicker sucks. Here's the thing, like all these Broncos fans are freaking out like, oh, it's the same old thing under Sean Payton. It's like, guys, the NFL doesn't have the ability to turn over a roster like Deion's doing in Boulder right now, for example. You don't really have the capability of doing that in the NFL. It's going to take a year or two for Sean Payton to be able to get this thing to be what it is. And he pretty clearly at this point, from the way he's talking, doesn't think Russ is his guy, even though Russ isn't playing that bad at all right now. Russ is actually playing pretty well for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's at the end of a game and you're in clutch time and you're trying to get a game-winning drive, I'm still not sure I want Russ to be that guy. But he did complete a Hail Mary pass at the end of the game and had what should have been a pass interference on the 2-point conversion to tie it. So I'm not it. Broncos fans right now are overreacting and going nuts. I'm not quite there. Do I think this team's like a Super Bowl contender? No, but I didn't before the season. So that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, I think Russ is playing better than he did last year already. I thought personally, I think what you said about defense is there. And I mean, in the little that I've watched, I especially that last drive, I was shocked that they got a touchdown. I thought the offensive line played freaking terrible, atrocious.
Yeah.
Like it was so bad. I mean, the freaking right tackle was getting beat off the snap every single time. He took one step back and he was already in Russ's grill, and Russ had to scramble, not by design, every single play on that game tying drive there. And the thing was, like, not only did he have to scramble like every single time, it was just like, what's going on here? Because it was like snap, pressure, and okay, now I got to figure out something to do. And it wasn't like it happened once. It was over and over and over.
Yep.
So when you talk about him playing well, it's incredible, because I think the offensive line, at least through 2 weeks, might be one of the worst in the league. I have not seen much from them that I like.
Yeah, here's the weird thing with the play calling specifically and with Sean Payton is this offensive line in the offseason was built to run the ball. Mm-hmm. They got guys in there that are great run blockers, not good pass blockers at all. And they have not done anything to establish the ground attack even remotely. It's the weirdest. I don't know. It's weird. I think they're going to figure it out. This is what happens when you have a new head coach and you're bringing in a new system and you got a bunch of new guys on the line. It's just going to take some time. So I'm not pressing the panic button with the Broncos yet. I think they are pretty much what I thought they'd be, is better than last year. Maybe not record-wise, but they look better than they did, at least on offense.
Oh, I would agree.
How about your Niners, though?
Woo-hoo, boy.
Your Niners look like they are poised for a Super Bowl run. Maybe an overreaction through 2 weeks, but they look damn good.
I think they are the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, they are 2-0 without playing a home game. They went into Pittsburgh, a game that a lot of people had Pittsburgh winning that game, and wiped the floor with them on their home turf. And it's, I mean, last week, I almost felt bad, but you can't really. But I almost felt bad for the Rams, because had you not known better and known what SoFi looks like, you would have thought that was a home game, because it was a blanket of red inside that stadium.
100%.
It was a 90-10 ratio at the least. But they are looking good. And I don't know what more it will take for the non-believers to believe in Brock Purdy. I mean, he was, 8-0 last year as a starter, and now he's 2-0 to start this season. Played pretty well in the playoffs until he didn't mean to. Wasn't his fault. Accidents happen. Blew out his elbow. The dude's been incredible. Granted, should be easy for even Mr. Irrelevant to look good with Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. But, man, I think Purdy has been very, very good, has them poised to make big moves. I think Kyle made the right decision getting off a Trey and saying, hey, the thing's yours. And then defensively, have fun. Pick your poison.
That defense is wicked, man. That defense is nuts.
I mean, that's Bosa, Armstead, Werner breathing down your neck. And, yeah, have fun. And so now on Thursday, they get the Giants with Daniel Jones and no Saquon. So, again, have fun, New York.
Yeah, and the Giants
terrible.
Should be 0-2. Yeah. That's all I got in the NFL. I haven't been able to watch a lot. I mean, it looks like the Cowboys are playing better ball than they have been. I'm not going to believe it until I see it in the playoffs with them. I'm not too worried about the Bengals' slow start. I'm not too worried. The Chiefs losing a game doesn't mean anything. Travis Kelce wasn't in. They're still going to be there. Buffalo's going to be fine. So we'll see as the season plays on. The NFL is just one of those things, like college football is so exciting early because it just means more every game. NFL really starts to ramp up when we get to the second half of the season. Let's talk a little bit of baseball. We're getting into postseason play. Unfortunately for both of us, that is going to be postseason play without our teams.
No, what are you talking about? I'm a Mariner fan now.
I was actually wearing a Mariners hat today because that's what I am de facto as well, because being a fan of the worst team in the National League by 10 games is rough. They're going to lose 100 games for the first time in franchise history, and that is wild to me. But here we are. Playoffs are starting to take shape. You got a bunch of teams that have clinched playoff spots in the last couple weeks, and a couple that have clinched their division, or I think just one. The Braves have clinched their division, and the Dodgers have clinched their divisions in the National League. In the American League, nobody's clinched a division. The Orioles and the Rays have clinched playoff spots. The Orioles of all teams. That's got to be the team. If you have zero rooting interest, you have to be rooting for the Orioles this year. How can you not?
Very easy to root for. They've been playing so well. And local Oregon guy up here, Adley Rutschman, have yourself a career, my man. He's playing so well for him.
Yeah. And they're just a fun team to watch, and it's always good to see that team kind of come out of nowhere and do well. In the Central, it looks like the Twins are going to end up taking the Central there. Nothing really new in that regard. The Astros, Rangers, and Mariners in the West of the AL are all within a half game of each other. This is going to come right down to the wire.
Oh, big time going to come down to the wire here with the fact, too, that Seattle ends their season. Their final 10 games are 3 on the road against the Rangers, 3 at home against Houston, and then 4 at home against Texas. They get their division, and they can take care of business. They control it themselves here. I mean, you win those 3 series, you got yourself in the driver's seat in the AL West. But yeah, it is coming down to the final week in that division, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean this is what you wait all 162 games for, is a week like this for the AL West. It's going to be must-see TV as we get to the playoffs, and then once we're in the playoffs, obviously, playoff baseball is just like a whole nother level from the regular season. So looking forward to that. Obviously, the Braves have clinched in the National League East. In the Central, it's looking like it's going to be the Brewers, and then the Dodgers have clinched in the NL West. The wild card teams are looking most likely like the Phillies, Cubs, and Diamondbacks. The Marlins are still kind of hanging around there with a decent chance. So that's what we're looking at there. The wild card teams in the AL, they might have 2 wild card teams from the East, 3 teams from the East making it, with the Blue Jays looking like they're going to lock up a spot. And then the other 2 are going to come from the whatever teams don't win the AL West. So playoff coming into picture. Obviously, we'll talk about those brackets and give some predictions once we get there. But as we sit here today, who do you like out of the AL and who do you like out of the NL going into the playoffs?
Oh, man,
that's the World Series.
That's a tough one. I think what's going to be interesting is who gets out of the West, because if Houston locks in that division, I look at everything and I like them. I like their experience. I think they're going to be a contender. But I think if I look at all these teams, I think I'm leaning Tampa Bay. I like the way they've been playing all year long. And yes, they're 2.5 back of Baltimore, but I like them. Hey, and the juice of seeing renders of a new stadium, they're going to be hyped. So, hey, I got Tampa Bay. In the NL, boy, it's a 2-horse race. It's either LA or Atlanta. And so just on principle, I'm going to take the Braves because it just feels dirty to say the Dodgers. So yeah, go Atlanta.
I'm with you on all fronts there. The tough out in the AL is going to be Houston, like you said, for obvious reasons. And the NL's got to come down. I mean, the Dodgers may choke because they like to do that. But it certainly looks like it should come down to the Braves and Dodgers. And I just like the firepower the Braves have a little better. I mean, they have a plus 218 run differential. That's nuts.
It's pretty good.
That is insane. So, yep, I'm taking the Braves and I'm taking the Rays as the World Series pick. We'll see how that plays out. All right. That's it. It's time to talk about college football, the greatest sport on earth. We're going to start with Pac-12 review or recap from week 3, talk about the action, go through some of the storylines, talk about kind of what happened elsewhere in college football last week before we start previewing the crazy slate of games that we have coming up this week, especially in the Pac-12. This is what we're here for, is week 4. We've been talking about it since the beginning, but it's starting to get exciting, college football. So week 3 recap, obviously with me being a Colorado Buffaloes season ticket holder. I've got the hat on. I do have my Oregon shirt on for those of you screaming from the cheap seats out there. I hate this week, so I'm just going to preface this whole thing with that. I'm glad this week is done after this year, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But let's start with your reactions to the happenings in Boulder and the Dion mania that's going on around the country.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. He's shaking the boat and he's doing everything wrong and blah, blah, blah. And that's a joke. That's a joke because, dude, we've had this conversation on radio all week long. And so many people are rubbed wrong by this. This whole like, oh, I take my glasses off when I talk to adults because I'm an adult. Shut up. That's stupid. And like we're getting this argument. They're like, yeah, well, because I said, I don't care. Wear your sunglasses at the press conference. I don't care. This whole idea that you got to dress a certain way, be a certain way, it's all antiquated BS anyway. But they're all like, well, I would take my glasses off if I was in a recruit's house because I want to talk to that parent or that family. I want them to see my eyes. And I look this guy who said that to me dead in the face. I go, if he could be wearing a unicorn hat and his glasses, it doesn't matter. He's going into rooms right now and getting recruits. It's working. It's working. And getting the parent on your side only matters so much because the person you're recruiting is the player, right? Now, yes, you want to make sure you do right by the parents and all that, but he is speaking the language. He has the players working. And I'm telling you, he's a breath of fresh air. I don't understand the mad amount of hate. Like, here's the thing. If this was a coach who came out of nowhere and was acting like this, yeah, I'd be like, whoa, dude, like, prove yourself first. This is prime. Like the sunglasses thing, go back to interviews he did at FSU. He was wearing sunglasses at interviews in college. Like this is who he's been
his whole life, man.
Exactly. This is Coach Prime. And again, the little things he does that I think are so refreshing is like he goes into the press conference and he's like, "Yeah, Travis Hunter's hurt. We're gonna be out. We're gonna miss him for a few weeks." There's no like, yeah, we're waiting for tests. We don't know, next man up, blah, blah, blah. Coach speak, coach speak, coach speak. It's like, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to give you the answer. Like I said today on radio, Jamie, I was like, but what I love about Prime is when he sits in a media press scrum, he's just a dude who's talking to a bunch of other people. He's just having a conversation. He's not trying to play secret. He's not trying to hide anything. He has rocked the boat. And I think what the people who hate about it is the fact that not only has he rocked the boat, it's working. It's working. And this is where I want to get your take because the question we posed the other day on radio was, is this a success? What if Coach Prime struggles the rest of the year and they finish the year 3-9? Was this a success? And my answer is yes. It was a success because you went from having arguably the worst roster in college football to having a team that went 3-0 to start the season, who looks good out the gate, who has stars, who has games where the team is being introed by Lil Wayne and Dwayne The Rock Johnson is on the sideline, a team that couldn't give away tickets to selling out every single home game, to the fact that 9.3 million people tuned in to watch Colorado and Colorado State, which is the highest rated nighttime game on ESPN ever. I don't know if you heard this, but there was a podcast, the Warner family podcast, Fred Warner, talking about how at the team dinner on Saturday night, before their game against the Rams, they put that game on in the cafeteria. And he said the entire San Francisco 49er team was jumping up and down and oohing and awing every single play. They were watching it like it was the Super Bowl. Colorado versus Colorado State. and the San Francisco 49ers were watching it like the Super Bowl. So if he does not win another game the rest of the year, this is a success because he did something that nobody had done in the past decade or two, and that was have conversations about Colorado Buffalo football.
Really quickly, I want to interject. The average viewership was 9.3 million. The peak was 11.1 million TV sets.
That's huge. That's huge. Well, ratings aren't on peaks; they're on averages. But yes, even better.
Yeah, but you couldn't find 11 people to watch CU last year.
Yeah, right.
100% true.
I couldn't give away my tickets when I wasn't going to be at a game.
God. Mario Cristobal couldn't get Dwayne to come to a Duck game, and he played with him. But Prime got him to go. Come on. It's incredible what he's done. He's rocked the boat, but I think he's done it in a good way. I don't find it off-putting at all.
Well, and here's the thing. I have a problem, and I was talking to Cameron about this yesterday. I have a problem specifically with Duck fans who have a problem with Deion, because you know who you sound like when you complain about what Deion's doing in Boulder? You sound like all the old heads that were complaining about what Chip Kelly did in Oregon 10 years ago.
Yeah, 100%.
You sound just like them. So check yourself before you start. Like, I get it. You cannot be rooting for them, but you can't just sit here and say, I don't like it because I don't like Deion. I don't like what he's doing. I don't like how he's going about it, because he's changed. Now, here's a slight difference. Chip Kelly changed the game when it came to how the game was played on the field in college football forever. That's indisputable. I don't know that there's another coach out there that can do what Deion's doing, because he's prime, like you said. Like, everybody's like, is this going to be a blueprint for how college football works from now on? It's like, no, this is lightning in a bottle. This isn't like any coach out there can just go and do what Deion's doing. It's Deion fucking Sanders, man. Like, there's nobody else that can do this.
It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. And it's not as if he's unproven either. I mean, people want to argue that, like, oh, prove yourself. He took Jackson State to the national title game. Like, he turned he took a team that, unless you were from Mississippi or the South, you had never heard of Jackson State, let alone could put it on a map. And he had Jackson State being talked about on ESPN. Where he goes, headlines follow. And again, it's incredible. I think he's rubbed the old guard the wrong way. But I mean, heck, even Nick Saban had to come out and said that he loves Prime. So I think the only people that have a huge problem with this, and I heard this on radio this morning, and I agree with it because it hurts, is Duck fan who is like, oh man, finally someone is trying to outswag us, and they might be outswagging us a little bit, right? Because Deion is different. Deion is absolutely different. And you and I grew up in the era watching the tail end of his career. We knew who Prime was. Like, Prime was legit, and he is. I mean, the guy went to the Super Bowl and the World Series, for goodness sake. He's lived a life.
He is one of one, man. He is one of one. I don't know of any. I don't even know, like Torsten said, they're going to try. Somebody's going to try to replicate this, and they're just going to fall flat on their face. This is not something that is able to be replicated. Now, the question is, who's going to come out and try to get Deion? Did you watch the 60 Minutes interview with him the other day?
I have not.
It's very good. It's worth a watch. It's like 13 minutes. You can find it on YouTube. I don't think Deion's one that's going to bolt for a school like Alabama, and he has been outspoken, shockingly outspoken against anybody that ties him to Florida State. I don't know I don't know who at Florida State pissed him off, but he wants basically I don't see a Mario Cristobal type bolt from Deion to Florida State, and that's not what he's here for. And he's said that. It's hard to. I don't know. I don't know how long he's going to be in Boulder. The optimist in me wants to be like, he's here for the long haul. They're moving to the Big 12. He can recruit in Texas. He can recruit in Florida. He loves it here. Everything that he says is how much he loves it here. And part of me thinks he wants to be the guy that brought Colorado from the brinks of college football hell to the mountaintop. He wants what else can Deion do in his career, whether it's a player or as a coach, other than literally bring a team from the depths of college football, the rock bottom as you can possibly be, unless you're 2008 Washington, and bring them up to a national title. I don't know that there's any other. That would be one of the best coaching feats of all time.
Yeah. I mean, and it hits home for us. I mean, we saw the lightning in a bottle with Chip, right? And turned Oregon into a national title contender. But you can't act as if Chip just did that by himself, right? Like Bellotti had turned that program into a consistent winner for a long time. Chip had brought Chip on staff. Like the building blocks were there for Chip to just strike while the iron was hot. As we're again, Deion just took over and said, nope, we're going to do it my way. What was it? 90% of that roster turned over. I mean, it's incredible what he's done, and he's proven it. And like I said, I like him. And then you got to respect so many little things. Like he came out today talking about how he has nothing but respect for Dan Lanning and this and that. I love the fact that he did not hesitate to call out all the people who are calling out sending death threats to the Colorado State player, say, no, that's just football, man. Like it happens. Like it might've been, was it a dirty play? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but the kid was just playing football. You know, Travis Hunter said the same thing, and he's the guy who got hit. Right. So no, I like it. And I'm with you. I don't know. Does he go somewhere one day? Maybe. I mean, you kind of felt the vibes early on that Jackson State was a special place to him, and it was. He put the HBCUs back on the map, and right now
he did also always say when he was at Jackson State that he wasn't done there.
Yeah,
he was not secretive that he wanted to coach in the Power Five. He has also not been secretive that he wants nothing to do with the NFL. He has said that multiple times, flat out. I'm not coaching in the NFL,
right.
And he's not built for that's not. His coaching style would not translate in the NFL.
Yeah, he couldn't do the same stuff in the NFL than do here.
No, he's a teacher, man, and he wants to help young men, young kids become men. That he wants to build up men, and he wants to be this is what he wants. I think he's where he wants to be. Again, we're speculating. It doesn't really matter at this point. I got to live in the now, but
the biggest question, and Torsten hits it on the head, is the connection to his kids. And he wants them to win a national championship, I think, really bad, and that's what he wants. And he wants to coach them. I think he's already said that. Yeah, Shadur ain't going out next year because he wants to be the driver. He doesn't want to be number 2, alluding to the fact that Caleb Williams is the consensus number 1 overall pick. But once those two leave, then I think you have real questions that he asks himself where he wants to be now that his kids aren't going to be under tow. So good point there by Torsten.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. As a Colorado fan, and I will caution all Colorado fans, just enjoy the time you have here. Let's not get too caught up in if he stays, if he goes. Just enjoy the ride because it's going to be one hell of a ride. Let's talk a little bit about that game because we're going to get into the rest of the Pac-12 slate here and what was going on. Everybody's overreacting, I think, to this a little bit because it was so close and Colorado arguably should have lost that game. Here's the thing for most college football fans don't understand the Colorado State rivalry. I saw a stat on Saturday before the game that in the history of the Rocky Mountain Showdown, I believe 7 times one of the teams had been ranked. All 7 times previously, the ranked team lost.
Oh, yikes.
This game is always close when it's not supposed to be. It just has a way of doing that, especially when it means a lot and one of those teams is ranked, like I said. It just happens that way. The fact that 98-yard drive by Shedeur with 2 minutes left in the game was one of the more impressive things I've seen on the football field in a long time. I saw that punt. That punt was coming right at us in the south end zone, go out on the 2-yard line. I was like, there's no fucking way. 98 yards. They haven't been able to move the ball all day. The offense has been stagnant. This game's over. And he just went Superman mode and took over that whole I don't even know what to say about that drive other than it was insanity.
Yeah, absolutely it was. And there's something to be said. I get why you do it. You don't want to get beat over the top, but a team like Colorado's gonna get yards when all you do, we're just gonna open up the middle of the field and just let them get 15 yards a pop. Guess what? That moves you down the field pretty quickly, and that's what Colorado State did. They went into like you said, a prevent. Don't get beat over the top. Leave the middle of the field open, and it just allowed Colorado to just churn up yards. And that offense is too good to willingly shorten the field for them.
Yeah, and what was the problem that all day for Colorado was their O-line, right? And this we're gonna talk about this moving forward. The problem with Colorado, and we've been on it since the beginning, is both lines. They struggle with depth, and they just don't have a whole lot of talent with the big uglies up front. But you spread out the field, you give those receivers time to run, and you give Shedeur time to move around, get out of the pocket, and make plays. He's gonna win that battle 10 times out of 10. We've seen it now 3 weeks in a row. You let Shedeur get out of the pocket, you let those receivers run free, they're gonna get open, and he's going to hit them.
Yeah, and he throws an incredible football when he does it too. And I had a big knock on him. I wasn't a fan of his going to Colorado just from the games that I had watched at Jackson State. I thought he got out of the pocket too quickly, like didn't like to step into the pocket. And as soon as there was any hesitation, he got out of it and almost always rolled to the right side every single time. But I feel like he's worked on that a ton. He stays in the pocket longer than he did at Jackson State. When he does roll, it's not always with the intent to run. He's looking downfield, looking for those easy passes. So again, credit to coaching, because they coached that out of him in a summer, and he's looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. Not the best, in a stacked conference. Unreal. But no, he's too good to give that amount of time, that amount of space. You got to put pressure on him, which is why this week, as we'll get to, is going to be really, really fun if you're a Duck fan.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things to me with Shedeur is the offensive line's been bad. They had 8 sacks in the Nebraska game. He didn't flinch. One of the most impressive throws that he had in the TCU game, there was a middle linebacker right up in his grill, and he just delivered a strike over the middle. And so he just doesn't – he's got his dad's poise, and that is very clear. Nothing shakes him. If he gets sacked, he just gets up the next play and nothing changes. He's not going to flinch in the pocket. He still steps up. He still rolls out, and he still finds the open guy. I can't say it. I mean, he's completing 79% of his balls, for crying out loud. He's playing out of his mind. 1,300 passing yards, almost 1,250 passing yards in 3 games. Crazy stuff from Shedeur Sanders. So the thing with and all these Duck fans are all ripping on the O-line, rightfully so. If you have that guy at quarterback, you're going to be able to stay in any game potentially. So little preview coming up there for the Oregon game. But let's move on to the rest of the Pac-12 slate from last week. One of the higher profile games was kind of an ugly slate of games with a lot of FCS and Group of 5 opponents. But the higher profile game was Washington at Michigan State. Michigan State obviously in shambles right now with Mel Tucker. Shout out to Mel Tucker for leaving Colorado and eventually leading us to prime time. But Michigan State obviously in shambles. Washington destroyed them. Washington's looking good. I still I still need to see it from that defense. I don't take a lot from that Michigan State game with what that program was going through last week. What do you think? I'm trying to be my fandom's hard to get in the way, not get in the way here when I talk about Washington, because I've been pretty timid on them so far, and they just I haven't seen them play a good or great team yet.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I still like them, mainly because, man, Michael Penix, boy, kind of what you just said.
Legit.
Yeah, what you just said about Shadur and the fact that, even if the offense plays bad with him at quarterback, you're always in the game. That's Washington with Michael Penix. He's incredible. I think of all the quarterbacks in the conference, Caleb Williams included, I don't think anybody gets the ball out of his hand quicker than Michael Penix. It's an unreal release time out of that guy. Love his game. But I'm with you. They need to get tested defensively. I mean, Michigan State wasn't going to be a big test going in. Like, they're a tough team. They got good players, but that week going in, yeah, like have fun. Your coach is nowhere to be seen, embroiled in a controversy for sexual misconduct. All eyes are on you for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, Washington probably was going to win that game regardless. But yeah, I know that Washington's good. I just have a hard time, like you said, putting my thumb on exactly where their holes are and what they need to work on, where their weaknesses are, etc. But they are good. I mean, they're going to be a hard out for anybody.
Well, and here's the thing. They don't face a real test even in Pac-12. I mean, the Pac-12's hard basically from top to bottom until you get to the final two teams, right? Arizona State and Stanford are an absolute dumpster fire. Other than that, there's not an easy out. Cal has pretty clearly made a big step forward. Arizona's probably the weaker of the two of those, but the rest of them, I mean, the Pac-12 is just so stacked. And unfortunately, if you're an Oregon fan, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Washington's slate to start Pac-12 play is at home against Cal this week, and then at Arizona, and then a bye week before playing Oregon. So we may not see a real test for this Washington team until we get to Oregon. They then have Arizona State and Stanford. The last 4 weeks for Washington are brutal. You got USC at USC, home against Utah, at Oregon State, and then home against Washington State. That's a rough November.
Very.
And that's going to be a theme here because everybody's November in the Pac-12 is pretty bad, at least at the top. So that's Washington. If we're moving on down the list here, just in terms of start times of games, the Utah Utes played Weber State and destroyed them. Didn't learn a whole lot there. This is another team that I still don't know a whole lot about because we haven't seen Cam Rising. I think we can make some assumptions based on what Cam Rising has been throughout his career at Utah, but how's he going to come back off of injury? Is he going to be the same guy? Is he going to gel with this team now that they've not had him for 3 weeks? He has to gel quickly because Pac-12 play is going to be brutal. So what do you expect from the Utes as we keep moving forward here?
Here's the thing, man. I know Pac-12 play is going to be brutal, but for them to grab a win against Florida, to go into Waco and beat Baylor and do this without Cam Rising, have fun. Have fun playing this team. This team is built to win, man. They're going to bring it on every facet of the game. And then when Cam gets in there, even Cam Rusty is a pretty damn good quarterback. So I don't think there's going to be any, skipping of beats when he gets back in there, any rust or anything. He's going to be ready to go, and it still makes them a favorite in the conference.
Yeah, and I don't think we've heard if he's even starting yet this week. I think the buzz is that they think he is. Mm-hmm. It's hard to play in Rice Eccles, and for UCLA this week going in there with a true freshman quarterback, that's a tall task.
Very.
But we'll get into those previews shortly. Another team, and now I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about the team coming up, and that is the Oregon State Beavers. Because, yes, they look good, but they have played nobody.
No one.
San Jose State is bad. UC Davis is an FCS team, and San Diego State doesn't have an offense to save their life. Watching San Diego State try to play offense is like watching Colorado last year for me. It's atrocious. So, yes, Beaver fans are all high and mighty that they have won these games and dominated them, but my question for them, especially going into this week, you're going to Pullman in a game that's going to have a lot of feelings and emotions as the two teams that are left out of the movement in college football, out of the Pac-12. And Washington State has had a test. They played and showed well against Wisconsin, obviously. This version of this Beaver team is not battle tested. Are you concerned about that as we move towards Pac-12 play?
I'm not concerned about it because, I mean, the team as a whole might not be battle tested, as we say, but their quarterback certainly is. He's been here before. He knows what's up. I mean, this is a Beaver team that has weapons everywhere. Sean Fenwick and Damian Martinez is 1-2 punch at running back is incredible. They got weapons at wide receiver. Offensive line play has been through the roof good. I think they've allowed one sack or something like that. That's been probably their strongest point of football this season so far. Defensively, they're playing better than I thought, considering they are filling some pretty big holes. But like you said, UC Davis is going to blow the barn doors off. San Diego State's offense is terrible. This is going to be the biggest. The offense, not concerned about. They're going to get their points every single week. They're going to do their thing. Defensively, they're going to get a massive test for against Cam Ward. Ward is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the conference because nobody's talking about him because the other 5 good quarterbacks get the shine.
Yeah.
But he's really freaking good. He's really freaking good. So if this defense struggles against Cam Ward, okay, then they're going to struggle mightily against Shadur Sanders. They're going to struggle against Michael Penix. They're going to struggle against a Bo Nix, right? So it's going to be a very, very big test for this defense.
Yeah, I'd say the only pushback I have there is you said the quarterbacks played well. I have concerns about DJ. He's played well against poor opponents, but there have been times where I see him throw a ball and I'm like, oh, there it was. That was what we saw at Clemson. So maybe it wasn't just a Clemson thing. And, again, subpar opponents, and he's completing 62% of his balls. Not exactly the stat you're looking for if you're a Beaver fan out of DJ. The other question mark I have with DJ is coming out of fall camp. It was sounding like it wasn't clear cut if DJ was going to win the job over Aiden Childs.
Big smoke screen, man. Anybody with a brain knew that was DJU's job, and it's crazy the amount of people, even those close to the team who report on the team daily, who honest to God thought that Ben Goldbranson was going to be the starting quarterback. Right now, Ben Goldbranson is the third string quarterback because Aiden Childs, who I think is going to be a really, really good quarterback, is the second in command. Would have been the starter if DJU didn't transfer. So yeah, you thought Ben Goldbranson was going to take that spot? Please.
I just have watching the tape and watching the highlights and actually watching the game, not the highlights, watching the bad plays that DJ had, I would say the level of concern is higher than I thought it would be at this point in the season. Can he turn that around? Absolutely. Is it a new system and a new team and he's trying to get used to his receivers? Yes. Okay, so I get all that. We'll see this week. Like you said, this is kind of the benchmark for what this Oregon State team's going to be is this week. On the road, Pac-12 matchup, and a Washington State team that's better than everybody thought they would be. What do you do when you're supposed to win, even on the road? That's the true test coming up.
In a place, too, that I think I love Martin Stadium. I think it's one of the tougher places to play. It's so unique. I mean, you can go to Cal, but you're only going to be playing in front of 20,000 people spread out over 100,000 person stadium, right? Martin Stadium, you're in a city that eats, breathes, sleeps college football. So definitely going to be a good test for them.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's move on to Oregon. Played Hawaii. That game went.
We have to. I guess you had to cut Colorado State. I have to talk about my only other favorite team getting destroyed.
That game, I mean, come on. Did you expect anything else than what happened in that game?
Hell no. I love my Rainbow Warriors on a personal level, but that team's terrible. They're not a Power 5 team, obviously. So coming into Autzen, it was going to be tough. Timmy Chang's still got a ways to go to get the team where he wants, and I think he'll get there eventually. But no, it was going to be tough out the offset. I thought it was actually kind of Oregon to allow them to score 10 points before they went back to Honolulu. That was kind of them. But this game was, I thought overall, even though Hawaii has its holes, I thought this was a good rebound from what we saw against Texas Tech. The fact that, second half was second and third stringers right back in there because the offense took care of business and was clicking properly. Yeah. It was exactly what you expected them to do, which I think was good for a get right game after Texas Tech. And I was not freaked out over Texas Tech, dude. It's football. We played it. Not every win is pretty. Sometimes they're ugly. I think sometimes winning the ugly games is more important than winning the flashy ones.
That's a huge point.
Yeah. So no, the game played out exactly how I thought it was going to.
That is such an underrated point, especially by Twitter, keyboard warriors out there that just overreact to everything. Duck fans are among the worst when it comes to this. Cameron, you can speak to this because we talked about it on Saturday. I don't care what the spread is, especially in a rivalry game. So the Colorado State game is kind of like on a whole different level of this. I don't care what the Vegas says you were supposed to win by, especially on the road. If you're talking about Oregon at Texas Tech in a tough place to play in a state that you don't go to very often, a place you've never been, a win's a win, man. It's college football. At the end of the day, who cares what it looked like? You got the win. Good teams win those ugly games when maybe you're not playing your best ball. You eke out a win, you figure out a way to get it done, and you do it. Bad teams lose those games. Mario Cristobal would have lost that game against Texas Tech, and you can't convince me otherwise.
That's because he would have fumbled the last 2 minutes, and all of a sudden we would have been out of time.
100%. Would have misused timeouts and would have Mark Helfrich would have lost that game against Texas Tech. I think the mark of a good team is when shit hits the fan and it doesn't go the way that it was supposed to, or you're not playing the best ball that you can play, you still find a way to get it done.
I mean, it's funny. I think so many people, if they didn't play the sport, will never get it. If they did play the sport, have forgot what it was like to be in the locker room, because I won plenty of ugly games and a coach was never upset that we won. Hey, it was ugly, but we got the win. Exactly. That's what matters. We'll go out on Monday. We'll fix what we need to fix. But just like you said, good teams find ways to win those games.
Yep. Dion was the same way, right? Everybody was expecting Dion to just shit on his team because they played like crap during. He didn't do that. Win's win. It was ugly. You guys fought back. It was a good job. We got a lot to work on, but we got the dub. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is which column is that game going in. And it went in the dub column. So
I think it's also funny when you're like, they had to luck into the pick six by Bossa, but there's never but the narrative is always they got lucky because the defense did that. It's never the defense stepped up when it needed to and made the big play to
also,
win the game.
Did you watch that play? It's not like it was just a fluky play. It was intense pressure from the edge. You forced that interception at a very key point in the game. Yeah, it's the narratives that people try to run with this stuff is nuts.
Yeah, it's interesting when people try to say that, the defense got lucky when they did their exact job and it performed the way it was supposed to when they did their fucking job.
Right. Your defense stepped up in clutch time and they lucked into it. Get the fuck out of here. That's not how this sport works. Yeah, again, to Chris's point, like, tell me you haven't played the sport without telling me you haven't played the sport or you don't know what you're talking about. Like, come on now.
If your fandom started with Chip Kelly when scoring 70 was the norm, you have been pampered.
100%.
I had to watch Justin Roper as a backup quarterback my first year in Oregon.
Back to the current slate. Yeah, the Oregon-Hawaii game was a breath of fresh air. It's what we needed to see out of this team heading into conference play. It was the bounce back we needed, to your point. Let's move along. Washington State, Northern Colorado. I don't have a whole lot of takeaways here.
None.
Did what they were supposed to do. Same with UCLA, North Carolina Central. Like, I didn't even know that was a school. Cal, Idaho, not a whole lot there. Sacramento State going into the farm and beating Stanford. Sacramento State keeping the FCS streak alive of an FCS school beating a Power 5 school like 7 years in a row now or something. And Sacramento State got some vengeance on their former head coach who bolted for Stanford.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen, if the greatest coach of all time would have stayed just one more year. That's right. David Shaw should have just stayed.
Oh, my God.
I should have known that was coming.
I wonder when he was going to pick up that torch.
I had to get one in.
That coming.
I had to get one in.
I mean,
yeah,
you're 100% right. If David Shaw was there, they wouldn't have lost that game.
Oh, they would have. But Stanford is an absolute dumpster
fire.
It is interesting because we talked about David Shaw, and I do defend him. I think he's a better coach than you guys did, and that's fine. But I do think it's interesting here. I think Wilcox deserves a little bit more credit than he's getting because both Cal and Stanford were decimated by COVID more than any other school in the freaking nation because of the protocols there in the Bay. They basically had to restart those programs from scratch. It's crazy. And Cal is looking respectable. Like they're not looking like a conference winner or anything. They're just not looking like a dumpster fire. They're looking like a team that can go out, maybe finish 6-6, what have you, maybe get to a bowl or even 5 wins. I think would be a success considering everything they've dealt with.
Yep.
I think he deserves a little bit of shine for what he's doing at Cal.
Yep. Fully agree there. We'll see with the turnaround. We'll see with the move to the ACC, man. We haven't really dug into that because I don't even know what to say about that move. But we'll see what happens. Arizona State. Oh, man. Getting blanked by Fresno State at home. Talk about two dumpster fires. Stanford and Arizona State are not going to win a conference game. I'm calling that right now. Those teams are bad.
Yeah. Yeah, you might be right. They are pretty terrible. I do feel for old Kenny having to deal with cleaning up the garbage left by Herm Edwards. How do you get those guys ready every single week when you got to tell them they have a bowl ban? That's rough. But yeah, that's not a good showing at all from Arizona State. I know Fresno State's tough. I know for the last 2 decades, everyone said they play like a Pac-12 team, but they beat the barn doors off you on this one.
Get blanked at home. That's
brutal. That shouldn't happen at all. That is
brutal. It should never happen in any circumstance. And they did. They found a way to do it. Arizona beat UTEP. Arizona's looking more respectable than I maybe thought they would be. Arguably should have come away with that win at Mississippi State a couple weeks ago. So, again, this conference is so deep until you get to the very bottom of the barrel. and then it's really, really bad. But what conference isn't bad at the bottom of the barrel? They all are. So that's Pac-12 recap. Other recaps from the week, there weren't really a ton of good games. There were some amazing finishes. Did you see the Mizzou Kansas State finish with a 61-yard walk-off field goal?
I did not. I missed this one.
I was watching this live just by happenstance because I think one of the games I wanted to watch was on after it, and Mizzou had the ball with like a minute left. They drove. They got to like apparently their kicker has a huge leg, obviously, but they got into field goal range, and then they couldn't. They were out of timeouts. They got the ball in the middle of the field. The play clock ran out. So they had a delay a game with 4 seconds left. Stop the clock, fortunately for them. But now from a 56-yard field goal, it went back to a 61-yard field goal, and he nailed it. It was one of the most – I don't know if I've seen one college kicker hit a 60-plus yard field goal, and that was Mason Crosby in Colorado. Doing that at Mizzou, impressive stuff.
It's incredible.
Tennessee, Florida, obviously was another matchup of the week. Turned ugly there at the end. Did you see the fight?
Yeah, I did. I'm just more disappointed that I can't win our damn college football pick'em. By the way, I'll send you money eventually, Cameron. I can't win that damn thing, but I'm the only person that picked Florida in our entire group. I'm the only one.
Yeah, you did call that.
Brutal. I was like, sweet. This is gonna help me out. No, because it was all those other damn 50-50 games that I picked wrong. But
this week's even harder. I don't know if you've looked at the slate this week.
Oh yeah, I made my picks already. So, but yeah, that was an interesting game. I'm not sold on Tennessee just because Hooker was so good for them last year, and you saw that fall off when he got hurt. But man, that's the fight at the end was something else. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Tennessee was clearly more Hendon Hooker than I thought. I went into this. I will give Eli some credit here. I don't know if he's still listening or if he's still doing whatever Korean karaoke that he said he was doing. I'll give Eli some credit because I thought Tennessee was more Josh Heupel's system than it was purely Hendon Hooker. I knew Hendon Hooker was a big piece of the puzzle. I just didn't see the drop off being quite as drastic as it appears to be, because they're pretty anemic on offense this year so far. How do you feel about Georgia and Alabama so far this year? Because they have been less than impressive.
Alabama, man, it's quarterback play.
100%.
This is the first time in like 30 years
2 decades
that Nick Saban hasn't had an NFL quarterback taking snaps, and it's just been terrible. And so I know what the problem is there. That's it. I think if they had a Tua or a Jalen Hurts or Mac Jones type, it's a much different team right now because they got the beasts. But Georgia, boy, I don't know what their situation is. They just don't look as dominant as they had in the past. I mean, do we have to all show up to Stetson Bennett's house and give him his flowers for disrespecting him for the time he was there and saying he was an average quarterback? Because apparently without him, Georgia can't win, and he was a lot better than we thought. Maybe that's the case. But yeah, both of these teams look vulnerable. Absolutely, they look vulnerable. Like Georgia is still, Georgia, but Alabama definitely looks like they're poised for a down year. I'm not going to be shocked if they end up with another loss or two. But college football feels like it's wide open right now.
I think that was the point that I was really going for is, in the last 10 years, by the time we get to this point in the season, it's pretty clear who's going to be dominant the rest of the way. Now, upsets happen. It doesn't always go the way that you think it's going to go fully, but I don't see a team that is doing that right now. Michigan's not doing it. Georgia's not doing it. Ohio State is not doing it. Alabama, obviously, with the loss to Texas, isn't doing it. And then Texas turned around and struggled against Wyoming the following week. Like, nobody's taking up that mantle, and it's setting up for a wild year in college football. Which brings us to the week 4 slate, which is absolute insanity. I think there's 6 or 7 ranked matchups this week, with 3 of those being in the Pac-12. So let's run through. Let's start with the non-Pac-12 games and see what you think about these, because there are some big matchups this week. We're going to start with a non-ranked matchup, but one that was kind of circled at the beginning of the year as being a huge game, which is Florida State at Clemson. Clemson's pretty clearly taken a big step back. I think Dabo is starting to feel the effects of not liking the transfer portal and not embracing it, because Clemson's falling behind relatively quickly. However, they are only a 4-point favorite, or a 4-point dog in this game going into Saturday. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think Florida State gets the win here, but let me just hang my hat on this nonsense. This is why I hate, and I've been vocal on this show before, I hate preseason polls. They are just there for talking head talking points so that I have something to talk about in week 1 on my radio shows. But Florida State, like, we have argued, Jamie, over and over and over again that preseason polls specifically are built off of name recognition. That is why Notre Dame is always a top 15 team, despite stumbling somewhere along the way every single year. I'm sitting here as a college football guy, as are you, going, Florida State, where the hell did this come? A top 4 team? Where the hell did this come from? Like, yeah, they might be 3-0, but Florida State, a top 4 team, like, they might take the mantle from Notre Dame on name recognition, giving them a benefit in the poll, at least in the year 2023. Like, I am not sold on them in the least. I don't think they're a college football playoff team. However, I think they more than cover the spread against Clemson in Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Florida State, and what really doesn't help with the preseason polls, is they beat number 5 at the time, LSU, to start the season. Again, wildly overrated LSU team.
Big time.
So how good is that win? We're not really going to know how good that win is until we get halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season. You know, we won't know. Now, LSU did destroy Mississippi State last week, so maybe LSU's legit. It's also week 1. So we don't know much about any of these teams. I am with you. I think Florida State wins this game and covers. I am low on Clemson. But it's college football. Terrible. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen? Let's move to Ole Miss at Alabama. Is Nick Saban going to lose 2 home games in a row?
This is a really, really tough one for me to pick. I don't know. Like, I like Alabama, but I like what Ole Miss is laying down. I think they're a hard out, man. I think they're a really good team. I don't know how good they can be, but if there's ever a year for Ole Miss to strike, man, you know, Alabama's limping a little bit. They don't have the dogs that they did a few years ago. They're switching quarterbacks back and forth. They're going back to their original quarterback this week after some dissension, playing a different quarterback, and they got to figure it out. Like I said, Saban's in uncharted territory, not having an NFL caliber quarterback under center. He might not have a Power 5 level quarterback under center right now. They're struggling. So this one, Jamie, I'm not trying to cop out. This is a true 50-50 game to me, man. I have a hard time picking this one, and I have gone back and forth all week long. And if it's a tie and tie goes to the runner's Alabama.
I'm picking Ole Miss in this game, and it is because they play a lot like Texas does. They lean on their quarterback to get the job done, but they also have a solid rushing attack. And that defense is better than I think they're getting credit for. And we saw it in the Tulane game at Tulane, because that Tulane team is good. And Ole Miss not only held their own, but played very well, especially defensively in that game. So I'm picking Ole Miss. Part of that is me trying to hope that Nick Saban loses 2 home games in a row, just because it's nice to see Alabama struggle from time to time. But I also just like what I'm seeing out of Jackson Dart, and I like what I'm seeing out of this Ole Miss team, and I don't like what I'm seeing out of Alabama's offense at all. And I just don't see how they're going to score points, and I think they're going to give up points. So I'm taking Ole Miss. As crazy as it sounds for Nick Saban to lose 2 home games in a row, I'm picking it.
Yeah, and I might change my pick by the time our pick'em is actually due, because like I said, this has been the hardest one for me to pick. God, hiccups, excuse me. But it's been the hardest one for me to pick all week. I think it's a true 50-50 game, man, because I think Ole Miss can win. I think Ole Miss might be the better team right now. I just don't see Alabama losing twice.
In Ole Miss, like if Ole Miss was at home, I would take them in a heartbeat in this game. Bryant Denny's a tough place to play, obviously.
Very.
So we'll see. Game of the week, Ohio State at Notre Dame. This game feels different to me than and you talked about it. We've been very vocal on this show about Notre Dame being overrated every year. This might be the one time that I actually think Notre Dame is properly or even slightly underranked because of the play of their quarterback. Sam Hartman is as advertised, if not better than advertised, thus far in his Notre Dame campaign. Now, again, who have they played? Not a whole lot, but they did play NC State at NC State. That's not a slouch. Notre Dame looks formidable this year, and Ohio State at times has looked beatable this year. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I know it's not good radio or podcasting when you guys just agree with each other nonstop, but I am in agreement with you because Notre Dame hasn't shown a lot of holes in their game as where Ohio State has. Ohio State doesn't look like the Ohio State of even a year ago. They got the dogs at wide receiver, but obviously they don't have CJ Stroud under center right now, and that makes a big difference. As for Notre Dame, I think a big difference with them right now. You want to talk about LSU for a second? Well, guess what? They don't have Brian Kelly on the sideline. I think that plays a big role. Like if Brian Kelly were coaching Notre Dame right now, I'm like, yeah, Ohio State wins this
100%,
game.
100%.
But Freeman's done great, and I am totally with you. Hartman's been phenomenal. This feels like a different Notre Dame. In fact, what I like about this Notre Dame team compared to the others is even though they're ranked number 9, even though they're 4-0, people aren't talking about them like they're the national champion Notre Dame's, right? Because all these other Notre Dame teams, everyone's like, oh, college football playoff. When the writing's on the wall, like they're not a good team. You know that they're going to stumble. This team, on the other hand, nobody's talking about them, and they haven't shown those holes in their defense yet. So I like Notre Dame in this one, especially being in South Bend.
I agree. I'm in full agreement there. It feels weird picking against Alabama and Ohio State in the same week. It's pretty wild. Last ranked matchup before we get into the Pac-12 slate of games, we have number 24 Iowa traveling to Happy Valley to play Penn State. Can Iowa score? That's the only question in this game.
And the answer is probably not.
No, and it's probably an emphatic no. I have Penn State, and whatever the line is, I have Penn State covering.
Right now, it's Penn State minus 15 over under 40. Yep.
Yeah,
they cover.
Give me Penn State by 3 touchdowns. I think
they win this one easy.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's get into this Pac-12 slate that is just absolutely loaded on Saturday. It starts off with the game that everyone's been waiting for, and the game that I hate most of all, Colorado at Oregon. Do the Buffs even stand a fighting chance on Saturday?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I hope Don Essig and the rest of the PA crew is ready. I want them to play nothing but sunglass themed songs now that they're on the road. Cheap Sunglasses by ZZ Top is a good one. You know, I wear my sunglasses at night. If it has the word sunglasses in there, play it. Give it to them hardcore. Here's the thing, and eager to get your take on this being a Colorado guy. It's like the Colorado State game. It was ugly, but Colorado hasn't been tested. TCU, obviously not the TCU of last year, right? We know that. Nebraska, defensively good, offensively, it put them in a matchup against Iowa, first team to score a field goal wins, okay? Because neither one of those teams can move the ball. That offense is atrocious. Yep. And then Colorado State, it was an average football team, looked really good against them. This is the first time that they're playing a complete team that's going to challenge them on both sides of the ball. And the really tough part is two of Colorado's biggest weaknesses, being the offensive line and the defensive line, is two of Oregon's strengths, really. Like Brandon Dorlus is going to be the best defensive front man that they have faced all year long. And it is going to put a ton of pressure on Shadur. They're going to win those battles up front all day long. So this is going to be, if Colorado stays in this game or stands a chance, it's going to be a Shadur Sanders show because he's going to have to put a lot on his back. The line right now is at Oregon, -21, -21. And I think there's a chance they cover because their weaknesses are all lined up with Oregon's strengths, and this is going to be a really interesting matchup for Dan Lanning.
I'm in full agreement. I said going into this season that Colorado's downfall is going to be their both lines. It's playing out that way. Their lines are not good, and they have no depth. Dion has said so. He has called out publicly and nationally that they need big guys up front to come play in Boulder. He knows it. It's not a secret that the lines are a problem. And you nailed it on the head. The strength of this Oregon team is their D-line and their O-line. Now, the O-line is not what it was last year, but it's still miles above whatever Colorado has on the defensive line and in linebacking core. Not to mention Colorado is missing maybe the best all-around player in college football in Travis Hunter going into this game. It's just not stacking up well. And then it's in Eugene where it's basically impossible to win on the road. The Ducks are going to win this, and they're going to win it big. I picked the Ducks to win and cover. And I think that's the case. And I think as a Buffs fan and a Ducks fan, I'm okay with that result. That's fine with me. The Buffs are ahead of schedule with this. They need a little slice of humble pie as we move along here. I think losing that game to Oregon going into the USC game is going to be what they need to kind of get back on track and get off this hype train a little bit. So that's how I see it going.
Well, yeah, I think what's interesting too is to see how Coach Sanders carries himself after a tough loss. And personally, I think he's going to handle himself very classy. Like if he walks into the post-game presser after a tough loss against Oregon, I personally think he's going to be extremely complimentary of what the Ducks did. That's just how he rolls. Yeah,
he's
that's
already
how he rolls.
What like if you're looking at his stuff, like going into week 1, there was no talk about TCU because they were massive underdog, right? They're supposed to lose that game. So there's no shit talking. There's no, they said this, they said that. There's some of the media has been saying this about you guys, so you need to go out and show them. But there's nothing about TCU. going into week 2, you're a home favorite against Nebraska. So what is it? It's personal, right? Like it's personal. They made it personal. Look at what they're saying about us. Going into week 3, you're a huge home favorite against an in-state rival. Again, what is it? They said this. They're saying that. It's personal. What is it this week with Dion? Nothing but compliments. Nothing at all. He has said nothing, not a single negative word about Dan Lanning, not a single negative word about Oregon as a whole, nothing. In fact, I even saw a press conference yesterday where he said something that somebody maybe could have construed as a shot, and he backtracked immediately to make sure that they knew it wasn't a shot at Oregon. So he knows. I think he won't say it. He will never say that he expects to lose this game. He knows this is going to be a battle that's a tough one and could go south.
I would also argue too, Jamie. You look at year 1, Dan Lanning dropping the Civil War, losing to Washington. I think this is high up on the list of games I cannot afford to lose.
Yeah,
I cannot lose this game, and I think Dan Lanning's going to take that as a personal challenge, not from Dion, but from himself, to say, okay, I have got to win this game to prove that I belong and we are ready to roll as a team, because you can't lose this one if you're Dan.
Well, and if you're Colorado, what's the problem with all this hype and all this attention you're getting? There's a target on your back.
Big time.
And what do you not want as a team that's trying to come back from a 1-11 season and turn things around quick? You don't want to you want to be able to sneak up on people. You don't want to be the one that's being hunted. And they're going to be hunted for the rest of the year because people want to send a message. So that's what comes with Deion Sanders. It's all part of the package, right? But yeah, I don't see this one ending well for the Buffaloes.
Yeah.
Next matchup at the same time, unfortunately, on Fox, we have UCLA at Utah. We kind of previewed this one earlier. I believe Cam Rising's coming back. I don't think that's been confirmed yet. Rice Eccles is hard to play in no matter what, and you got a true freshman coming in there. I think I heard on the radio today that true freshmen in the last 30 years or something at Rice Eccles are like 3 and 13.
Yikes.
Not boding well for UCLA.
No, I do think Dante Moore has looked good. I'll give him that.
Yes, he has.
I mean, you can understand why Oregon wanted him so bad. I just look at this and I think Utah has gone in and, like we said earlier, beat Florida, beat Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, dude. It doesn't matter if they're a good or bad team going into that stadium without your starting quarterback. That's a tough task for anybody, honestly. And they were up to it. And you can easily look at the stats and go, oh, well, UCLA averages more yards and they do this. Look at the teams they played. Like, they have not been tested. We talked about Oregon State. This is their Washington State game. The only difference between that is that Utah is better than Washington State.
Yeah, 100%.
It's going to be a really good test for UCLA. I think they're going to take a stumble. I still think they're a good team. Chip has them going in the right direction. I think Utah wins this one with or without Cam Rising.
I agree. And unlike the Washington schedule that we talked about earlier, UCLA's schedule goes from cupcake non-conference to absolute treachery in the Pac-12 to start. They go to Utah this week, home against Washington State the following week, and then at Oregon State to follow that up. So
I'll be at that one.
You may be looking at a 3-3 UCLA team before you know it here. So yeah, I have them losing this one.
Has it hit you yet that Chip Kelly has been at UCLA longer than he was at Oregon?
Whoa. What?
Think about, he's entering year 6 at UCLA.
That shit's nuts.
Yes, right? Right?
that can't be true. I don't want to fact check you, but like that doesn't feel real at all. Oh man,
it's real. Doesn't that hurt a little bit?
That does hurt a little bit. Do you think he regrets going to the NFL? Not to like get totally derailed here, but do you think he regrets leaving Eugene?
I don't think so. I think he's the type of guy that wanted that challenge and had a chance to take it, so he did. And he's found a good spot in UCLA because their expectations aren't as high. So, and he's done good. I mean, he started out slow, but he's got them back in the right direction. They're 3-0 right now. Could maybe end up hitting the 10-win plateau. You never know. But yeah, just if you want to fact check me, you can, and it will bear out. His first year at UCLA was 2018.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
Wild to think about that he's been there.
That is crazy.
Longer than Oregon. Pain.
Yeah, that sucks. To be fully honest with you. All right. Arguably the worst game in the Pac-12 this week, and that checks out because it's the only game on the Pac-12 network this week. That is Arizona at Stanford.
Oh, that was good.
Arizona by a lot.
Yeah, easy.
What's the spread? Arizona by 12. Hammer that. Arizona minus 12. They may triple that.
Yeah, I'm putting my whole 401k on that one.
Oh my goodness, dude. Put your house on that line.
Grab that second mortgage real quick.
Hammer. Yep. And if I lose it, don't come after me, but I would hammer that line like it's going out of style. That's all I have to say about that. Stanford's a dumpster fire. Speaking of dumpster fires, we've got USC at Arizona State. Arizona State, I guess we'll find out how good or bad USC's defense is because the bar has now been set by Fresno State as to what to expect to do to this Arizona State team.
Yeah, they're not going to put a donut up 2 weeks in a row here. So they're going to score. They're going to put up at least 10. But that minus 35 might hold because this offense of USC is unreal, man. And Caleb Williams is definitely one of the best quarterbacks I've ever watched in college football. I've said this, and anyone who says otherwise doesn't pay attention. But Caleb Williams, he is in college football right now, and he is better than a large margin of starting NFL quarterbacks. And if you think I'm wrong, you're stupid. Like, who do you think the Panthers would rather have, Caleb Williams or Bryce Young? Would you rather have Caleb Williams or C.J. Stroud? Caleb Williams or Anthony Richardson? Would you rather have Caleb Williams or Jimmy Garoppolo? The list can go
Russell
on
Wilson.
and on and on. Caleb Williams is freaking good.
Yep. And Arizona State's bad. And they're missing Jaden Rashado, which I didn't know that he was out for the Fresno State game, but apparently he's out 4 to 6 weeks. They may actually get blanked again.
We'll see.
Yeah. I wish USC had a game in here before they have to come to Boulder next week. Maybe not. Maybe Colorado can sneak up on them because they haven't played anybody. One can hope, right? Anyway, and then to round out Pac-12 play, we've got Pac-12 After Dark with Cal at Washington. You said Cal's looking better. Do they even stand a puncher's chance?
I take Washington. I think the interesting one is the line. The line is at 20.5. And I think that's really, really interesting because I'm almost tempted with the under on that one if I were betting, even though they're at home. Cal has showed improvement. They're not the easy out that Stanford is, right? I think that they play a good brand of football. Like I said, all things considered, Wilcox, he's doing a very good job there. But Washington ain't losing this one. I'll tell you that one.
No, Washington's definitely not going to lose. I'm going to take Cal to cover, though. I'm going to take Cal to cover.
That's what I'm feeling.
That's probably 20 and a half seems close. I think 17 may be the number. Somewhere 17, 20 may even be the number.
That's what I'm feeling.
But I think Cal, you're right. Cal's going to surprise some teams this year. They should have won that Auburn game. They absolutely bungled the shit out of that. They should be 3-0 because they had no business losing that game, and they somehow did. All right, that's the Pac-12 slate coming up. Any final thoughts as we head into Pac-12 play? You know, we got 6 undefeated teams, 8 undefeated teams in the Pac-12. Obviously, 3 of those have to lose this week. I guess here's the question that I'm going to pose from that. The Pac-12 is almost undoubtedly the deepest conference in college football this year, and I think that's pretty much undeniable at this point. Is that going to mean that we do not see a Pac-12 team making the college football playoff?
No, I still think you do with how deep this conference is. I think there's a lot working for them. And you never know. I think someone still might be able to get through this. As hard as it is to say, like, there's not a favorite. Like USC has the best offense and the best player in the conference, so they're the favorite probably. But I could see realistically USC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, or Oregon State winning this conference. That's 5 teams, and I could realistically see 3 of those teams running the table, like if everything clicks. So no, I don't think that this, just because it's deep, that means they're out of the college football playoff. I think when it's all said and done and the dust settles, someone will stand atop as the best team. It's just the intrigue is which one it is, and it is the most Pac-12 thing, Jamie, for this team to have a record 8 teams ranked, 8 teams sitting undefeated, looking like the best conference in football in its last year of existence. Like, it's the most Pac-12 thing ever.
I missed a game. I totally missed a game that we need to preview, and that is the Mountain West showdown between Oregon State and Washington State.
We kind of already previewed that one. That's
we
why
did
I
a little.
we skipped it, but right now, I mean, the line is at -3 for Oregon State, so it's a favorable line there. But I like DJ Uiagalelei. Cam Ward, I think, is the most underrated quarterback in this conference. That's going to be a battle. I think the difference is going to come down to just the playmakers around him and what you can do. Damian Martinez, absolute stud at running back for Oregon State. One thing about this team, even if you don't like DJU and him making mistakes, is Coach Smith has the offense churning. He has them making the right plays at the right time and just taking care of business. I think they're going to do that again this weekend. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think this is going to be the type of game that comes down to maybe Oregon State final possession, field goal to win it, or either ice the clock so that Washington State doesn't get that final chance. But with that line at -3, I think it's right within that. I think it's a 1-score game when it's all said and done.
Yeah, this one's going to come down to the wire. I don't see either team running away with this. My concern with Oregon State, again, is we haven't seen who they are against a good team. And we have seen who Washington State is against a good team, and they passed that test with flying colors.
Yep.
So in Pullman, I'm going to pick Washington State. If you're asking me how confident I am in that pick, it's basically a coin flip.
Yeah, big time.
This game very well could come down to who has the ball last.
Yep.
I like Jonathan Smith better as a head coach. I think Oregon State's a better coach team.
Mm-hmm.
I have question marks about DJ in this big game, and I have question marks. The question marks that I have for Washington State were largely answered against Wisconsin, so I just have fewer question marks with them, I guess, is where I'm headed. Again, I'm not – this is the one game on this slate that I don't feel confident at all and would not bet on because I just don't know.
I agree, big time.
It's going to be
a good football game though.
Good football game for Mountain West foes, Oregon State and Washington State.
I'm just laughing because on ESPN I have the whole schedule up for the Pac-10, as you may have as well, and it also has the average ticket or the ticket prices. And so right now it says Colorado, Oregon on Vivid Seat as low as $98, UCLA, Utah as low as $37, Oregon State, Washington as low as $50, Arizona, Stanford tickets as low as $6.
$6.
$6 get you into Arizona, Stanford, baby.
Shit, for that game, they almost got to pay Stanford fans not only to go to the game, but sit in the farm. Like, they should be giving everybody $6.
This is what Colorado games looked like last year.
Yeah, dude.
But Colorado still had 40,000 people show up to all those games, and the student section was packed. Stanford's going to be empty. That stadium is going to have like 12 fans. Have fun in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
It's the All Coast Conference now, okay?
That's true. It is. The All Coast Conference. Didn't they say they're going to play some like games in Dallas or something? Because it's so bad. It's so bad. Anyway, I'm going to give you the buzzer beater because I can do that. So why don't you think of that? Listener and viewer, wow, thank you for tuning in. We love you. Cameron, thank you for being the man behind the glass and giving us our beautiful outline here on our video feed. Zeta June, thanks for letting us use your music in our outro. Like, share, comment. We like interacting with you guys when you chat with us during the live feeds. It's awesome. But if you want to just tune in and listen, that is great as well. Until next week, enjoy the college football slate this weekend. It's going to be awesome. And Chris, please take us away.
Well, Jamie, first off, thanks for having me, as always.
Welcome.
I'm glad I could be back. And for our listeners, all I have to say is, if you liked what you heard today, you can listen to me every Monday from 6 to 7 on the iHeartRadio music app, Rip City Radio 620. Deuces.